Hello everyone. This is a quick video about versioning and how that shows up in Flow. Last week there were about 3 people who asked this question and I wanted to kind of give you some options. All right, so let me explain what I mean. So I have this list called methods, and basically we have a team working on these different methods, and we're asking them to make comments on these methods that we plan. Now, I didn't bother to put everything in this list. I just have a title and a note column, and I think you'll get the point. So in the note column, what they'd like to do is keep a record of every comment ever made, but you only see the last comment when you edit, right? So if I go into list settings here, we can look at this notes column to see how it's formatted. If I go into notes here, you'll notice that it is set here to this setting right here, which is append changes to existing text. And this is yes. And this is very important because what it means is that every time someone types a comment, it goes into the version history. So in this case, the versioning settings would have to be set to yes for that field to even work. Now, once it's set to yes, now when people edit this, and I'm going to temporarily take off my custom form because I have a custom form on this list. So I'm going to go to list settings, and I'm going to put this my form settings, and I'm going to turn it back to using the SharePoint default. Okay, so now I'm going to say okay. And now if I just out of the box edit one of these items, so I'm going to hit email, and then I'm going to hit edit. These are campaign names. All right, so if you notice here, and I'll just make this a little bit bigger, and this is the out of the box form. The last comment that I made is right here beneath this notes field. So this comment is no longer editable, but every comment that I add, so let's say I say this is my new thought, right? Then it will continuously show them. So let's look at this one. We'll just scroll over there. Notice that there were 3 comments prior to this one. So the idea is you're appending so that everyone can see everything that's ever been said about this item. But they can't edit those previous comments. And this could be for legal reasons or compliance reasons. They can't go back and edit them, but they can add a new one, and that will be appended. Okay, so this is an old feature in SharePoint. It's not anything new. But when you go into Flow and you access this list, okay, let's use this button right here. If I add that list, there's no way to get to the versions. So if I go into get items, and I choose SharePoint. Sorry, I clicked too quickly. SharePoint, get items, and I choose that site and list, and that is my parameters site, and the list is measures. There's nothing in here that helps me get to the versions, like previous versions. So if I compose here, notice that my get items gives me all the existing fields in that list, but there's no way to go back in time. And those previous comments are actually previous versions in that list. So what's a flow maker to do? So basically you have 2 options. Option number 1, which requires a little bit more skill, is using the HTTP request. Now I did a little bit of research on this, and originally you could not get versions via REST. in the past, but apparently someone has posted that today it is possible to get versions using REST. All right, so I will put a link to this, what I found on this topic, in the description. But I did not try this. It didn't seem to attract me as a method, and so I chose something a little bit more, what I call end user friendly. So let's go back to my SharePoint site. What I wanted to end up with is the ability to use these, sorry, I hit the wrong list. The ability to use these comments, not only in my flow, but in my Power Apps form and anything else. And I didn't want to have to worry about managing versions, right? And so what I decided to do is actually create a child list for this. And so I created a child list called MethodsComments. And so this is very similar to the idea of, let's have an orders table with the customer information and the shipping details and the pricing details. But then for all the line items or the order details, we have a secondary list. And that secondary list has some type of foreign key pointing back to the first one so that we know which comments relate to which method. In this case, I used a simple SharePoint lookup. So all I did was, in the list settings of the MethodsComments, I made sure I had a column called method ref ID, which this is my made up name. It means what is the ID of the method that this comment goes to. This is a lookup column, and I have it set to the title field of methods. And this way they could select the title of the method and get that field. Now, in addition, you can add other columns from that field. So I also included the title so that it would come out in a column, right? And actually this basically should be the ID, and title should come out. Or you can do it the other way around. Depends on how you want them to select it. You can have them select it and bring back the ID, whichever way you'd like, okay? But I'm not going to change this. I'll leave it the same. Now, what's going to happen here, therefore, is that when someone submits a comment, I'm going to have the form set the ref ID so that this can be triaged or filtered by the ref ID, right? So if I want to see things by method, here are the comments by method that have been registered. Now, this also gives me the capability of customizing a form that gives my user the same experience that SharePoint does, but also can do the work of setting the ID for the user. So let me show you what I did there. So going back to the list itself, which is methods, or the parent list, let's go and look at what I did in Power Apps. Sorry, I keep hitting the wrong list. We want methods. Okay, so while that's opening, we will wait for this cog, and then we will choose list settings. And now I'm going to go into my form settings and show you the custom Power Apps form that I made. It wasn't intended to be fancy, but it is a form that meets this particular need. Okay, so now I'm going to republish that form as well. So I believe if I just open up this guy and hit edit, my Power Apps form should appear. If not, I'm going to hit customize, and it will call up my form that I had before. If not, we can do this from scratch, and you'll probably learn more that way. It just took about 10 minutes. So the key here is the information architecture, how the list is set up. Now, I did not turn off versioning on the list because it doesn't matter, but this secondary list enables me to access those comments from Flow or Power Apps. Okay, so here's my custom form. Basically what that pop-up message said was you need to republish this because you had shut it off. But while we're here, let's just talk about what's happening here. So the top of the form just has the fields I want them to edit. And the bottom of the form has a gallery in it called Gallery 2. And as you can probably guess, the items property of this gallery item right here, just put this in Notepad so you can look at it. What it's basically saying is filter from the MethodsComments list. So that second list that I added is also added here as a second data set. And I am saying take the method ref ID value and match it to this integration selected item. So SharePoint integration is always going to give me what is available in what they clicked on, right? What did they click on, right? Then give me back the ID. So where that ID matches the lookup column in the methods columns, show me all the comments. And so this enables me to show all the comments for each item. Now, in addition to that, in the on change, now there's probably another way of doing this, but let's do both, right? So I put it in the on change, I put a patch statement in there to patch the note that they put in there directly to the comments list. So as soon as they leave the notes field, it immediately patches whatever they typed, that field, I've renamed it string notes. Whatever they put in those comments is being patched to the comments field of the MethodsComments list. The only little slightly complicated part here was that I had to push in two values, the ID and the title. So this happens automatically as soon as they exit out of that field, and then it refreshes the methods. Actually, it should refresh the MethodsComments. And the reason being is now we want to refresh that so that the gallery down here shows the latest entry. Now, this could also be under a button. So I'm going to copy this all and I'm going to insert a button and then paste that into the button. I wouldn't do both, of course, but I'm just showing you that you can do a button. And then if you do a button, you'll want to change it to like add comment, right? At the moment they click add comment, that's when it'll go into the secondary list. And so what I will do is select this form, move it up just a little bit higher. Is that comment in there? Sure enough it is. I meant to cut that out and paste that onto the screen. And I think the problem there is now I can't use this item. Let's see. Yeah, so I have to use SharePoint integration. So SharePoint integration you can use from anywhere on the screen, whereas this item you can only use within the actual form. Okay, and so if you use a button, your title will have to refer to SharePoint integration for the author. So just remember that's a difference than if you put it in on change. There I had this item, okay? Not a big difference, but you understand it. So some people may prefer to use the button only because it's more obvious of what's happening, you know, like to the end user. But you can put this logic anywhere you'd like in your form, okay? So let's go ahead and go back to SharePoint and we can see how this works. One thing I will do when I edit a form like that, there can be some caching involved. And so sometimes it doesn't show up right away. So I will do a Control F5, which will refresh and clear the cache so that I can test properly. Now, one more column that I added here is the Count Comments column. And what this column is doing is counting how many comments have been entered for this item. Now, how did I get that column? So that again is a SharePoint column. It's an old one. It's not a new one. You can just create a new column, it is a lookup column. Call it whatever you want. I usually prefix it with the word count so that it's very clear what it's counting, right? But then when you picking which column, because it is a parent list, it will give you this count related. And if you choose that, it will go look at that other list and count the related items. And so in this case, we're looking at the MethodsComments list. And what this is able me to do, which isn't a priority at all in the solution, it just gives me a visible idea of how many comments are in that other list for each item. So if I go to telemarketing, it looks like it's 1, right? So if we go back to MethodsComments, let's see if I know where that is. Right here, I have a link to that. You can see that as far as telemarketing goes, there's only 1, but Réunion has 3. Okay, so this was something that was done for Montreal a long time ago, and I'm just reusing it. Okay, so now let's look at our SharePoint form at work. Basically, I'm going to do that Control F5 thing one more time here. Okay, and then I'm going to edit. Now it says there's 3 comments, and if you look down here on the bottom, we've got 3. Now up here, if it's actually letting them edit the last one. Now in the out-of-the-box functionality of appending comments, you cannot edit a previous comment. So I'm allowing people to edit their last comment, but all you have to do is reset that field and they won't be able to. Now, I'm going to actually replace this. So this is a replaced comment. And then if I hit add comment, you'll see there it is down there. Okay. Now it added it twice. Why? Because I forgot to take the on change off of notes. So the patch happened on change as soon as I left that field, and then when I hit add comment. Okay, now by the way, when I edit this, and I'm going to get 2 again, right? When I edit this, I'm not actually editing the previous comment. I'm getting a chance to submit it differently again, because again, just like the version append comments works in SharePoint, we're really not supposed to edit a last comment. So you can submit it in another format, and let's take that on change off so that we don't do this twice every time. And you'll see why it's happening twice. Because of that, you know, you want to make sure that people can't edit previous comments, because that's usually a compliance issue. But in this case, the way we have this set up in the IA, you could make the business decision to allow them to edit comments now, because it's not versioning anymore. It's just information architecture. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and just go into the on change event, because I copied it, but I didn't remove it. And so let's take the patch out of here, put this at false. So there's no on change event. There's just going to be the button. Okay, so let's go back to SharePoint, save and publish. Now we won't get 2, right? Okay, we'll only get the 1 time I press the button. The downside is, and it's like 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, is that I actually worry that they don't press the button. And that's why I put it on change and did not include a button, because I really wanted them not to be able to forget to hit this button. So I would do one or the other, either do the on change or do the button. But if you do the button, please draw their attention to the button, because otherwise if they don't press it, then the patch will not occur. All right. And I'm sure you can think of a couple of other ways to do this. So now, because I have the last comment here, I could say something like, I meant to say that the is a fabulous building in Montreal. So if I hit add comment, this will not change, this comment that was before, but the new comment will be added underneath it. I think I did press it. Yes. And there you go. You can see the patch statement that actually initiated. You will also notice as soon as I press save that this number will go up to 3, right? Because now we have 3 comments. So let's hit save. And notice it went to 3. So this is just another way to handle versioning. Now in your flow, right, you now have access to both lists. So you could, so what I did, and I'll show you one that I have done already against that particular list. I've done this right here, where I actually got the items of the comments and used that for an HTML table that kind of did that. And then I sent myself this simple HTML table. And the reason being is that anything that you expose from that lookup perspective will show up in your child list. So you could have the customer name showing up in your child list. So there really isn't a need to join unless you have very complex scenarios. So thought I'd share that with you today and give you a chance to think about new ways to use versioning. Please, if those of you that are more experienced, feel free to use the HTTP method, request method, and see how that goes. And you know what? You'll get another video from me very soon. I owe you one, and then we're going to start a new series. So a new Friday function series, particularly for Flow. So I'll be talking to you soon. Have a great rest of your weekend.